Good evening. I'm speaking to you tonight as a representative of the National Organisation for the Prevention of Bad Spelling and Overuse of Spell-Checking Software. I've been asked to talk to you tonight about our work and the issues we are concerned about. Spelling is a real issue, but surely not, I hear you say. Well, I'm afraid that Shirley couldn't be with us tonight. Our president couldn't be here, and she has asked me to read from her specially prepared speech on her behalf. So, I quote, "I'm very sorry I can't be with you tonight, as I, and in particular Mr. Knott, had a previous engagement that we had to urgently attend to. We are judged every day, and spilling is one of the ways that we can be judged. It's important in this modern world that we put our best fool forward, and I am, so to speak, in this instance, the fool that has been put forward to speak to you tonight about the impotence of worms. Yes, worms are impotent. You may not think so. How can that be, you may ask? There are just so many of them, and there seems to be more and more worms each and every day. But I must tell you that the impotence of worms is our main and growing concierge. Now, I make it a point of never relying too heavily on the spring chicken software. I myself am no spring chicken. I rely instead on a good understanding of the Engelbert language, so I never have to rely on software to do my jobs for me. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to say that this particular big job now requires this tissue to be aired. Now, a lot of people ask me up and down this country, do I feel sore? They ask me. And I answer them, thank you for asking me. And the answer is yes, I feel very sore. I feel sore for those who have problems with spilling and who embarrass themselves with their spilling. Some people have been embarrassed by their spilling in meetings, others on the bus, or even in front of the vicar. But spilling is not something you should be embarrassed by, or even be sore about. With the right training, you can improve your spilling and reduce it to a bare milliband. Are you the sort of person who spills badly? Does your spilling get worse when you're under pressure? It could be nerves. Try to relax and you may well find that your spilling improves or certainly becomes less unprecinctable. Here is a simple technique that I find useful at times. Big breaths. That's how I relax. I find even just thinking about big breaths means that I usually calm down quite quickly. A worm of advice though. If you haven't handled big breaths before, I suggest you start with some nice small ones first and graduate up to larger ones when you feel you can really get into some big pants. Sometimes it can be that you've been looking at a screen for too long and you need some sort of low-level exercise to relieve the strain. In this instance, we suggest winking. A good wink can relieve the stress. Obviously, this is best done on your own, as it's sometimes odd to watch someone just suddenly start having a wink. Especially right there in front of you. And even more so if you're in the office or about to start a quick wink yourself. If you find winking difficult at first, it sometimes helps to combine the two. Who wouldn't enjoy having a really good wink between two big breaths, for instance? Nothing could be better, in my opinion. But that is only if you were to ask me. Now, let me get down to specifics. There are curtain worms that can cause problems, but really, all you have to do is pull yourself together. I was posed this question a while ago. What is the most misspelt word? And my response was this. I'd have to tell you, tomorrow. The next day they came back and I gave them the same answer, which just seemed an awful waste of everyone's tip. Perhaps it would be Google to give you some backbone on the organisation we are so proud to be napkin-coaling about this evening. The national organ for bad spilling, terrifying small chickens everywhere. Now, then Knobstos is a venereal group of men and wobbles who take a dim-sum view of bad spelling in all its flambés. Founded over 100 years ago, its goals and passions were clear to see from the very begonia. It was our founder, a huge tool of Tunbridge School, that said at his very first meat feast, and I quote from the opening in his dressing gown, "Our objectives must be clear as we must bend small children smelling badly. And before the bending can begin, we must make sure we know what we want to bend, how to bend it, and what a good bending will look like in the end. But believe me when I say, in this inaugural dressing gown, the bend is in sight." So the work began on recruiting what became known as benders all over the country, from Land's End to patio doors. Men, women and kinder transportmen rallied to the cause. So here we are to check. Nearly a long centurion later, and with over 70 million new mumblers every day, this great organ of change is as strongly smelling as ever. One of the great new initiatives is the work being done on the misuse of foreign worms in our country. These worms can be seen in the wrong context in many ways. For example, the term mange-tout. Mange-tout, made famous by Del Monte in Only Fools Captain Hosepipes, is clearly a mismoney of a well-known French term, and really, the least said about that, the butter. It's important to dismember that swelling badly can happen at any time. Whether one is swelling at work, swelling at home, or even swelling while the wife opens the front of her bra to put the shopping onto the passenger seat. Swelling can make social situations very aardvark. Imagine showing your mother in cold sore how well you swell, only to have her puncture your scowling frowns with her bony finger at your swelling and your massive erection of judgment. We are also concerned about the laziness of using split chicken software. Who uses split chickens? Nando's. And indeed, Grandad. In fact, almost everyone does these days, and no one seems to give a cluck. We believe this has to stop. Spelling, grammar, syntax, and punctuation. These are a firm of lawyers that we recently convinced not to use spoilt children software anymore. They spent an entire after 8 training their stiff to stand up to the challenge of swelling correctly 5th time, and they really think that they may have pulled it off. I will read you now their thank you letter that they sent us in the Mule. Dear Siri, we would like to thank you for your seminal worktop on the better use of shelving. We are certain that this will help us impoverish our bus lanes and will drive our revenues to new highs. Many thanks. This kind of work is often unrewarding, but we have always been of the belief that there are 2 types of people in this turd, the cans and the can'ts. And it's best to be a can, even if sometimes you think you might be a bit of a can't. And so, in some agreed, remember the impotence of worms, don't be a can't, and if you can be asked, spill well. Have yourself a very rude evening. Good night.